Why would a ruler kill his own brothers the very moment he took the throne? For the Ottoman sultans, this was not madness, nor personal cruelty. It was law. A law carved into the very heart of empire. The Ottoman Empire, unlike European kingdoms, had no clear rule of succession. Every prince, every son of the sultan had a claim. Whenever a ruler died, the empire teetered on the edge of chaos, for brothers became rivals. And rivals often became enemies. In the 14th and 15th centuries, the empire nearly collapsed more than once because of these struggles. After Sultan Bayezid I's death at the hands of Timur in 1402, his sons plunged the empire into a bloody civil war. For 11 long years, they fought brother against brother, city against city, until Mehmed I emerged victorious. The memory of that civil war scarred the dynasty forever. It was Sultan Mehmed II, known as Mehmed the Conqueror, the man who took Constantinople in 1453, who sought to end this deadly uncertainty. In his Canoname, or Book of Laws, he wrote the infamous decree: "For the welfare of the state, whichever of my sons inherits the throne, it is lawful for him to kill his brothers." This was not whispered as rumor. It was written, codified, and accepted as policy. The survival of the empire was placed above the survival of blood. When Bayezid II ascended the throne after his father Mehmed, he spared his brother Sem Sultan. But Sem fled, sought allies, and became a tool of the Pope and Western kings against the Ottomans. His existence threatened the empire for years, proving to Bayezid and his court that mercy could be fatal. The next generations learned from this. When Selim I seized power in 1512, he wasted no time. Within months, his brothers and their sons were executed. His reign earned him the title Yavuz, the Grim, but the darkest moment came in 1595. When Mehmed III ascended the throne, he carried out the largest fratricide in Ottoman history. 19 of his brothers, some of them children, were strangled with silk cords on a single night. The palace floors ran silent with sorrow, for no cries were permitted. To many this was barbarity, but to the empire it was necessity. Mehmed III's advisors reminded him that a single surviving prince could raise armies, ally with enemies, and drag the Ottomans into civil war once again. In this world, survival was the ultimate law. For a sultan, mercy was weakness. Every prince who stepped onto the throne carried the ghost of brothers who would never grow old. Yet as time passed, whispers of unease grew louder. Was this really the only way to secure the throne? Was the empire trading its humanity for order? By the 17th century, the Ottoman court was changing. The blood-soaked nights of mass executions had left scars not only on the dynasty but also on the people. The empire's scholars and jurists began to question whether the law of fratricide had gone too far. The great turning point came with Sultan Ahmed I. When he took the throne in 1603, he faced a terrible choice. His younger brother, Prince Mustafa, was alive. The law demanded Mustafa's death. Yet Ahmed hesitated. Perhaps it was compassion, perhaps fear of God's judgment, or perhaps exhaustion with the cruelty of tradition. For the first time in Ottoman history, a sultan chose to spare his brother. But if brothers were not killed, what was to be done with them? The answer was the kafes, the cage. From the early 17th century onward, princes were locked away inside the palace, kept under watch, denied power, and often denied even the outside world. The cage was not a dungeon, but a gilded prison. Behind those walls, princes grew up in isolation, some losing their sanity, others losing their strength. Thus, the empire had traded the sword for the prison. Death was replaced with silence. The dynasty survived. But the rulers it produced were often weak, inexperienced, but mentally broken. One of the most tragic examples was Sultan Mustafa I, the very brother spared by Ahmed. When he eventually ascended the throne, his years in the cage had left him fragile, erratic, and unfit to rule. He was deposed twice, a living symbol of the dilemma the Ottomans had created for themselves. The empire no longer bled from fratricide, but it began to weaken from within. But unprepared rulers struggled under the weight of power they had never been trained to hold. The law of fratricide was never formally abolished, it simply faded into disuse. Yet its shadow lingered over centuries of Ottoman history. It remains one of the most shocking legal practices ever written into royal law. The Ottomans believed it was the price of survival, a choice between the death of a few princes and the collapse of the entire empire. And for centuries it worked. The dynasty lasted over 600 years, never falling into permanent civil war like so many other royal houses. But survival came at a terrible cost. Behind the grandeur of Istanbul, behind the domes and minarets, lay a dynasty haunted by the cries of children who never saw the throne, and rulers who bore the weight of sins committed in the name of empire. In the end, the law of fratricide tells us a harsh truth about power, that in the struggle for empire, even family ties could be sacrificed. The Ottoman sultans believed they were protecting millions by spilling the blood of their own brothers. Whether that was wisdom or cruelty, that question still divides historians today. But one thing is certain. The law of fratricide ensured the empire's survival, even as it carved pain into its very soul.